endeavor because he doesn't speak the language. Or, in the worst case scenario, is dead, though some people might say that's not necessarily the worst case scenario with a difficult author. But the fact is that if that's one side of it, the other side of it is with this proliferation of publishing and all these titles being self-published and coming from all over, in some ways is harder to sell books because there's more competition. And of course the other competition is the amount of time people are spending on electronic devices reading, but not necessarily reading books. So all of these have presented new opportunities and new challenges to the world of translation, and I would like our panelists to comment on that. Would like to go first.
So I think I already mentioned the fellowships in my previous response. So I've seen a surge in organizations that organize fellowships, and the more the world becomes globalized, the more we will see this kind of more communication and people, foreign markets embracing editors, inviting them to come to their country and discover their literature. One of the fellowships that have been brought into life recently is, for instance, the Paris fellowships around the Salon du Livre. The Amsterdam Fellowship is also quite a recent one. There's one in Istanbul, the ITEF. So I think we will see more and more of these initiatives, and because, as you say, there is, with the surge also of self-published authors, there is such a big number of books that editors are faced with. So these kind of initiatives will help bring a selection forward and that they hear more about it. And it's I think that's one of the most important things of the globalization for international publishing. Now, the growing importance of digital content, I think it gives a lot of opportunities for translations, because certain publishers such as Frisch & Co., which are based in Berlin, but they publish translations in English. There's Le French Book in the US who publish translations from the French, as their name indicates. They do original in translations. And they, so in that way, they save expenses in print run, in distribution costs. They still have quite a bit of investment to do, of course, in buying the rights, in paying for the translation. But it does help them cover the costs more easily by just having an ebook at first. And most of them then go look for a print partner. I'm thinking about, for instance, Frisch & Co. recently had a success with Diaturm, right? I don't remember the name of the author now, but yeah, so Frisch & Co. bought the translation rights for World English for e-rights, and then they actually sold recently the print rights to Penguin UK, which is a great example of how publishing an e-original in translation can lead to a print publication as well.
Excellent.
In the translation world, we've seen a lot of trend towards smaller publishing houses geared specifically towards translation, and I think there are two things that have supported this trend. One is the internet, which made it possible to market your work with social media and what have you, and not just be dependent on, buying the large ad in the New York Review of Books to show the world that the book you published existed. It became cheaper to publicize works and easier. And also, so many countries have expanded the amount of subventions that are available to support literary translation. And I think that this latter trend, which maybe you'll say something about too, has been mushrooming, is in a sense a response to a not so positive trend, which is that a lot of the larger publishers in the United States have been publishing fewer and fewer works in translation, certainly if you compare to, say, the 1980s. And so in an attempt to get more work published and get more of an international exchange of the sort you were talking about, Ahmed, it sounds it's exactly right. You know, we improve the world by sharing our cultures with each other. I couldn't agree more. And so, in response, you know, countries that could afford to do so and weren't getting enough books translated started providing government money to help that happen. And as a side effect of that, smaller publishers were able to take this money and actually run on it in part, or support their operations without the huge advertising mechanism. And in the future, I see these trends continuing, certainly in the shorter term.